Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today on Veterans Day, we interview Matt Grimshaw. He made a documentary called VETSGROW and is looking to build an army to help support his bid to get around the country and spread awareness to veterans issues. Matt.
Part of the story of how I came into the vet world was actually taking American citizenship. I went on a massive Ken Burns binge while going through my civics test in order to learn American history for that. And during that period, I stumbled into an article that was via a Vietnam search, because I was watching this Vietnam series at the time. And basically, the article described PTSD, suicide among veterans, which I've been here since 2003, and I'd never heard of veteran suicide or PTSD before. And I consider myself fairly well versed when it comes to veterans, because if you read the High Times article, you understand I grew up with a whole bunch of World War II veterans in my local area, hearing stories of Battle of Britain and desert rats, etc. So when I first found out about a veteran scenario, I was horrified. And then I found out that cannabis could help. And the article that triggered me it's a printout of something I think came from the Denver Post. It was talking about a chap that served 2 tours in Iraq and had lost his legs in an IED, was on 47 different opiates from the VA, and had tried to take his own life a few times, got convinced to try medical cannabis, and it radically changed his life. He got down to like 2 opiates from 47, but the problem was then he had a $1,600 to $2,000 a month habit, and a disabled veteran on a fixed income, that's unsustainable. And this is basically what we're doing to all of them. Even if you're in a legal state, you could bankrupt yourself just trying to find some relief. And so I had an epiphany, and the whole teach a man to fish argument. And so convinced my client, because I was freelance for those guys, convinced them to give me their filming budget for a year. Worked with the Veterans Cannabis Group in Marine and another group up in Sonoma called Vet Connect. Took me 3 months to find a veteran willing to go on camera, and then I just spent the whole of 2018 literally following that story. I went up, we got free clones, free tent, Hawthorne Gardening Supply gave us everything for free for a friend. At Monster Gardens, mentored him, and it's literally a documentary following the story of him growing his first harvest for free. And then at the end of that, this is where I connected with you. I'd had this crazy idea to expand it to the whole of America by taking a 20,000-mile road trip with a truck chasing me, full of more gardens, 100 more, on a mission to build 100 more veteran gardens, give each one a GoPro camera and allow them to set up their own YouTube channel. And along the way, we're talking about 120, 150 days on the road, tell every cannabis story I could find. From PTSD to veteran farmers to, oh God, I can't even tell you, there's so many groups I've bumped into. There's a Little House community in Missouri. I bumped into a veteran hemp farmer in Texas who's desperately trying to make cannabis legal there. Guys from the East Coast to the West Coast via Colorado, all over the place. And now I'm in a situation whereby I nearly bankrupted myself this year, because although Monster Gardens paid for the filming budget, I basically did all the editing and production for free. It was a solo production. It was my first. And sacked all of my other clients to be able to do it. So lived on the breadline for a year, got to the end of the year and found out that I had a much bigger tax bill than expected, thanks to the tax law changes. And I've been fighting to try and keep my head above water ever since. So I've talked to a whole bunch of big companies that remain nameless about trying to get sponsorship to do this. All of them make lots of nice noises, and then suddenly when it's time to actually pay the piper, email boxes become black holes of inescapable responses. So I decided to earlier this week, I figured it can't hurt to just reach out to everyone that's on LinkedIn. I just typed in cannabis and started sending messages out randomly. At first, everyone thought I was insane, because I'd call people up randomly and say, hi, I'd like to try and help vets grow their own medical cannabis at home. And you'd instantly be looking for the FBI or something, most of these guys, there's a lot of paranoia there. But then after 3 months, I started making friends. And now Oh, I've got stories I could tell you all over the country.
So Matt, are you a veteran
I am
also?
not. No, I'm a civilian. I've only been a citizen for 2 years, and I've spent the whole of that time helping veterans. And so, really, uh, part of the story is I'm the wrong person to be doing this, but that's why I'm doing it, because shame is a very powerful factor. And most of America doesn't seem to be even aware that this exists as an issue. It's actually something I wrote about in the second article I wrote for High Times, which is called Beating the Schindler's List Effect. And the Schindler's List effect is something I came to terms with while connecting with several other veteran directors who are veterans that have made films about this, and my own experiences, which is the reason a lot of awards are given out for documentaries in this field and content in this field, but none of them have like broken it into the mainstream consciousness yet. And I couldn't figure out why that was. And I started to realize that with the power of Netflix and all of the different channels we have to absorb content now, the problem is people can now choose. And so if you're a hardworking, parent that comes home from a long day at work, you want to unwind and relax, what do? You're going to watch a show about PTSD that's going to mentally traumatize you, or you're going to watch Friends for the 5,000th time. And we all know the answer to that, 'cause the answer's in the viewing figure. And so I figured what we needed in order to break this out was some sort of levity to make people watch a light entertainer doing something which would allow us to go down the rabbit hole. So this is the reason for me, a motorcycle and a big chase truck in a Smokey and the Bandit style. It's just a publicity stunt and a distraction that allows us to go very deep when we come across the veterans, but in the meantime, keep it light. I'll get lost, bike will break down, all that sort of stuff. And obviously, this accent will cause all sorts of hilarity across the United States, as I explain to people I'm an American. Because it always gets that sort of look from everyone the first time I come across them. So
Just tell me you're from Florida.
touche. So what about yourself? I mean, what's your own background? How did you get into this space?
My background is banking and finance. So I'm a capital market analyst now,
Wow.
but in order to get into this space 5 years ago, I was going to open up the Seattle Super Chronic Cafe. But
Wow. Okay.
within 90 days of doing that, Washington State implemented an emergency Class C felony to operate and maintain a marijuana lounge.
Ooh.
So my pivot to stay relevant was catering and event planning, which, beanbag chairs to ounces to slabs of oil, people wanted everything. So that kind of turned into brokering, wholesaling, then advising, consulting, all the way up to $300,000 automated rolling machines. And now that finance is becoming more important with the emerging markets and Canadian public markets, an M&A analyst, capital market analyst is becoming more of a thing rather than just a CPA. So, 5-6 years later, I'm finally starting to get more and more clients from Canada to California needing vertically integrated opportunities in finance, and somebody who's been in the game for 6 years, which isn't a
But
long time, but for the regulated market, it is. It's since
wait,
inception.
yeah, it's not the OG perspective, but I mean, there's only a handful of those girls left, really. If we're honest, most of them got the hell out in the 80s, 90s, 2000s before it got ugly. Because it's been a messy process here in California. Legalization has hurt a lot of people, and the taxes are still ridiculous, which means the illicit market's enormous, still massive.
It's hard on everybody. I don't think we have the same advantages in banking that normal veterans would have. And so
Mm.
Boggy Boone Farms is a local veteran owned and operated producer processor, and they've kind of cut back on the amount that they're producing because they find that they can buy it cheaper than what they can
Oh,
grow it for, and then
wow.
manufacture their own specialty products. So I mean, it's everyone kind of has to pivot, and it's the advantages or not. We're hearing a lot about social equity programs, and that's great. We need to start fundamentally with banking, and so that our veterans can have all of the benefits and access to traditional lending, so that it can be business as usual instead of just a struggle.
Right. No, I worked with a veteran-owned. Well, they're actually, I think, classified as a distribution company now, called Hardcore Security. Aaron was working with my first veteran contact, a guy called Aaron Augustus. He founded a local group called the Veterans Cannabis Group, which has now got, I think, 5 chapters across the country, and it's growing quite rapidly. He used to work for a company called Hardcar, and it's 100% veterans, and they literally have bomb-proof vans that are unmarked. Excuse me, that are unmarked, and they transport cash and cannabis up and down California. And they've got the same thing going on in Florida and a couple of other states as well. So I'm fully aware of the banking nightmare it is at the moment. Because I mean, if you buy legally here, almost every other day you having to use a different credit card company because someone else has been booted out. Is it the same up there as well?
Yes, just today I heard that a retail shop had to either relocate or shut down because the landlord couldn't renew the lease because the bank wouldn't let them. So it's still very much an issue, even with CBD companies. Washington State banned all CBD beverages and edibles, just like California did a year and a half ago.
I didn't
So
know that.
it's an issue. But talk to me about this film. Do you think that the film is going to have an impact on legalizing something, that the Senate is about to have the chance to vote on what the House passed for the Safe Banking Act? Do you think that veterans are going to have an impact on not only that bill, but full on legalization and not just regulation?
I think yes is the long and short of that. I wouldn't have put so much time and effort into it if I didn't. And it's actually the crux of the article I wrote for Yahoo. It's if you want cannabis legalized, help vets grow. There's 2 things about veterans specifically. One is they're the last bipartisan group in the country. They're the last group that both sides of the political aisle will listen to. And the second thing is I have not seen another group that's been quite as effective at changing people's perceptions of cannabis from being, the stoner drug to an actual real legitimate medicine. And I've seen that with my own eyes through the course of VETSGROW because my student, his name's Al Duncan. He lives in a small cul-de-sac in Santa Rosa. And at first, when I first started showing up, because I'm riding a big, heavy, big BMW motorcycle, first of all, with camera gear on it, because that's a completely different story. It's a project I was going to do in the first place. As I was becoming an American, I had this sort of crisis of duality of all my friends back in England think I'm American and all my friends over here think I'm a Brit. So what the hell am I? And so I concocted this crazy plan to ride around the country, pushing a camera in people's faces, asking what is an American? Curious because I'm one in training. And I thought that was hopefully going to be my first documentary project. And then I bumped into the veteran world in the middle of this, and it completely tore all of my plans up. And so at the end of VETSGROW, it was trying to smoosh 2 projects together, with the idea being it's all filmed. So the 120 days is designed to be a complete filmed road trip to create content, hopefully a proper documentary series, but also social media, all of the different media outlets we've got now. And the principal aim is to try and show America in their faces what veterans do with and without cannabis by going through, in an illegal state, we obviously won't be able to build a garden there. And so we stop and talk to people to find out why, what are the blocks, what happens when veterans don't have access, what are the implications. And then we go across a state line and suddenly it's a completely different utopia for these guys.
The Yahoo Finance little bio here, I'm going to read this as we wrap this up. Matt Grimshaw, aka the documentarian, is a self-taught documentarian that has been running a YouTube channel in the NorCal cannabis space since 2015 after a 16-year career in science and technology, publishing both in the UK and the US. He's a proud immigrant citizen and advocate for the Veterans Cannabis Group and Vet Connect of Sonoma, 2 local nonprofit groups that help make his work possible. He's currently working on a sequel to his 2008 docuseries following a Vietnam veteran learning to grow medical cannabis at home called VETSGROW. He's looking for an army of help to support his bid to get around the country and spread awareness of veteran issues.
Right. I mean, for instance, I need to find 100 veterans where it's legal to grow. I really need a veteran contact in every state to help me get through. But along the way, I hope to have veterans come ride with me, camp with me, stay with veterans, talk to veterans. It's very much a building project as well to try and show and remove a lot of the myths about veterans. Because again, there's this divide where people seem to see veterans as something they're not. my reality of interacting with veterans is nothing like I thought it would be. They're just a bunch of people that need help and are not used to asking for it. They're a very self-reliant bunch of people, and every veteran I've met and interviewed, they don't want a handout. They just want you to help them get on their feet and then get the hell out of the way. And so it's more about just reintegrating America's veterans back into the country, because since Vietnam and the draft ended, what you've basically created is a subclass, a military class, if you want, whereby most of the veterans I've bumped into are either from veteran families, I mean, such as yourself, you had a veteran family and continued that tradition, or they're poor, and this is their escape route. And I come from a class system, probably the most famous one in the world, so I recognize class when I see it, and that's what we've done. And it's the most, I'm abhorrent to it because it goes against everything I love about America and the reasons I decided to naturalize and stay. This is the mixing pot. This is I kind of view America as the experiment for the world, to see if groups of people from different cultures could even survive in the same place. And so I'm a great believer in the American tradition and what it means to be American here. But seemingly, no, we're not adhering to an awful lot of the tenets that's supposed to make America what it is.
Well, if you like what you hear and you want to support Matt, you can join him on his 20,000 mile, 50 state, 100 or more VETGROW connections. You can get a hold of Matt at vetsgrow@gmail.com. I want to thank my guest, Matt Grimshaw. He's the documentarian.
Thank you. I'd like to quickly say, if anyone hasn't seen VETSGROW and they want to see it, just go to youtube.com/Monster Gardens and you'll find all of the episodes there. It's all free. No one's being charged for anything there. It's just my first professional work to try and help veterans as much as possible.
We appreciate your work, especially on this Veterans Day. So thanks again, Matt.
Thank you, Josh.
Hold this one up. Yeah, I'm Josh Kincaid. This is The Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.